A poorly packaged DVD and Blu-ray update, take one. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Hello and welcome to another DVD and Blu-ray update. I was going to do this one much later, but I couldn't be arsed waiting for one of the items to arrive. In case you're wondering, it was the Hollywood, Bad Black and Who Killed Captain Alex collection. Yes, I ordered it like 2 months ago and I've not received anything back from them, so I don't know what the hell they're playing at. But I might as well just show off what I've got currently, so without any further ado, let's get started. So the first one is an item that arrived today, and it is the Web of Fear Special Edition, or Doctor Who The Web of Fear Special Edition. I've got the original edition right here, which it was one of the, this came out shortly after, a bit like Enemy of the World, this came out shortly after most of the story was recovered, and as you can see it has no bonus features. I got this really for the bonus features. Episode 3 has been animated, and I've not watched the disc yet, but I've seen clips of the animation, and yeah, it is completely ghastly, but thankfully it's only one episode. At least it's not like 6 or something. I don't know if we'll ever get episode 3 back. I very much doubt it. There's been this whole hoopla thing about episode 3, you know, Floyd Morris found it, and then, but when he was shipping them over to the UK, it went missing. Some twatty collector got it, and all his bollocks. So yeah, this one, I don't mind the cover. It's, I will probably say they're both comparable, the original and the special edition covers. To be honest, this is much better than most of the animated covers, which a lot of them look a bit shit, you know, it's just the Doctor's face plastered all over the cover. It's pathetic. But yeah. This is the slipcase, which is, here is the actual case. This is the case which I'll be using the reversible artwork, you know, so that way it matches in with the rest. So yeah, here's the disc, here's the first disc, and here's the second disc. It has episode 3 in black and white and episode 3 in colour. They've not done like what they did with the animated, what's called faceless ones, where they animated the whole story, even the surviving episodes. I think with this, because 5 of the 6 episodes exist, it seemed a bit like a waste of time. So inside we have booklet. Actually, yeah, with all the other ones, and just a leaflet advertising crap. Advertising quite a lot of classic merch, surprisingly. You know, you don't really get that. You just see Jodie's face plastered all over the place. Adventures, the Mythmakers vinyl, Essential Terence Dick's Target collection. This, obviously, because the swing trays don't match and the fact that it's in silver, is not the original case it came in. This is the original case it came in, which, to be honest, it kind of feels a bit flimsier when compared to... It's a bit like an eco box, but without this shit cut out of it, and I think this might be from the same factory who does eco boxes. So yeah, this came out yesterday, but HMV decided not to send it to me until today, which is a bit shitty if you ask me. I probably won't. I mean, I pre-ordered the animated Evil of the Daleks, which is coming out next month from HMV. So who knows, maybe the next time I'll just pre-order stuff from Amazon from now on, because at least with Amazon I know it's going to be arriving on time. Okay, so now we're moving on to the rest in these Wolf films. First one is Pink Floyd The Wall, which a couple of years ago this kind of had a bit of a resurgence, largely down thanks to Doug Walker, of course. I've not really listened to any Pink Floyd before this point. I just got this because I knew it was a good film and I'd be getting free delivery on another item. Yeah, this is a good film. It's not like 10 out of 10 fantastic. It does feel a little bit like Roger Waters moping, which I think is one of the main criticisms everybody has against this film and the album. In fact, I believe sort of during this period, like when The Wall album came out, Roger Waters took over Pink Floyd pretty much, and I believe after the Pink Floyd The Wall movie came out, they let him go. So they kind of did their own thing after that. But yeah, this film has never been released on Blu-ray, stupidly. I don't know why. But I'm fine with the DVD. And also, bizarrely, the DVD, despite it being a PAL disc, it doesn't have PAL speed up. It runs at the proper speed it's supposed to. It's not sped up by 0.04%, which is a bit odd, but oh well. Next one is Oh Lucky Man. This is the second part in the Mick Travis trilogy. Well, I say second part, it's more a loose trilogy because McDowell, even though he plays a character called Mick Travis, he's not the same character and they sort of take place in different universes. So this came out after If and before Britannia Hospital. And it's sort of autobiographical about McDowell's sort of his early life, because before he became an actor he was a coffee salesman. And this is a really good film. I would definitely recommend this. Don't be put off by the fact that it's 3 hours long. You know, it's 3 hours and yet I wasn't bored once. So yeah, here's the discs. I've got a bit of an annoying thing about this because this set is out of print, and despite the fact that there's like tons of copies out there, you know, you can find it quite easily on eBay. A lot of people think it's worth like upwards of £20-30 sometimes, which is quite frankly ridiculous. So I ended up buying a used copy off eBay for about 15 quid. And unfortunately when I got it, the second disc had popped out. I should explain that, and I didn't know this until it had arrived, that the movie, despite the fact that you can fit a 3-hour movie on a single DVD, for some reason it's split across both discs. And you can't really blame me for not knowing that, because disc 1 is labelled as the movie and disc 1 as special features, even though disc 1 has the first half of the movie and bonus features, this one has the second half of the movie and bonus features. And the second disc had popped out and got quite badly scratched. The first disc was slightly scratched, but it was okay. And it was going fine. I was able to watch pretty much the majority of the film, but during the last couple of minutes or so, it completely cracked out. So I had no choice but to send it back, because if it cost me like £1 or something, then, you know, I could have taken the loss. But unfortunately, 15 quid, you know, you're going to have to send it back. So I ended up actually paying nearly 20 quid for a brand new and sealed copy. So this is that brand new and sealed copy. And also what I find funny is when I got it, both discs had popped out, but fortunately they're not scratched, or they're very slightly scratched. You know, they still work, they're still fine. Yeah, so Next two are a couple of Ralph Bakshi films. Ralph Bakshi is one of my favourite directors. The first one is a German DVD because you can't get it in the UK, and it is probably what I say his best film is Konskin. The title is supposed to be racist because although the movie itself isn't racist, and if you actually watch it you'll realise it's actually a critique on America's perception of racism and, you know, how they treat, you know, the black population. This film, of course, sparked a ton of controversy when it came out because a group who hadn't actually seen it thought it was racist against black people, so they were complaining, they were smoke bombing theatres and all this crazy shit. And in fact, one of the smoke bombing incidents, Martin Scorsese actually witnessed one of them whilst he was making Taxi Driver. But yeah, you do have quite a prolific cast in this. You've got Barry White and Scatman Crothers, and you also have Philip Thomas before Miami Vice. So yeah, this is a really good film. A little bit too heavy-handed with its message. Like, yeah, we get it, racism is bad, but you know, it's still a fantastic watch. Basically, this film is no holds barred. Everybody is caricatured. Every type, every ethnicity, every sexuality and stuff is all basically, like with most Bakshi films, the stereotypes are pumped up to 11, you know, as a way to take those stereotypes and, you know, throw them back at the audience and say, this is what you think, this is what you're like, take this is what you think black people are like, here it is repackaged to you in the most deplorable way possible. So yeah, definitely recommended. This is a German DVD because you can't get it in the UK. It's, I think, the only place you can get it on DVD actually are Germany and the US. There is a German Blu-ray out, but the German Blu-ray is stupidly expensive. Like, people are charging well over £100 for it, which is, quite frankly, ridiculous. So I got the DVD instead. And here's the slipcover. It has a reversible sleeve, so you can have either the no rating or the German rating. Here's the German rating, it's only a 16, whereas I think in the UK this was rated 18. Here's the disc. Unfortunately, slightly stupidly, the menu is a bit crap on this because it does have an English soundtrack on it, but to access it you have to the language is button on your remote while the film's playing, because for some reason the menu doesn't work, because when you select English it still plays in German, which is, I don't know what the hell they were playing at, and I don't know why they couldn't have just proof checked it. I mean, come on, I expect better from you guys. And then the final DVD is a box set, and it is the Fritz the Cat collection. This, I believe, is coming out on Blu-ray in America, but I don't know about here. This includes Fritz the Cat and 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat. I've written a fairly extensive review on my Letterboxd of the first Fritz the Cat film, so you can check that out for yourself. To be honest, part of me is wondering why I bought this, because I'm not really a big fan of these films. I mean, the first one, it's interesting, you know, for what it is, because of course it was famously the first sort of publicly released animated film to get an X rating, which doesn't mean it's pornography, in case you're wondering, because pornography didn't get that association with the X rating until like a couple of years later. So yeah, of course, in massively sort of influential film, it basically birthed independent animation and adult animation in America. This was based famously The author of Fritz the Cat, Robert Crumb, hated the first Fritz the Cat film so much he killed off Fritz in a later comic. And with the second film, he doesn't even acknowledge its existence. So yeah, here's the discs. The picture transfers on these were a bit crap. The first film is in 4:3 and it's got quite a lot of PAL sort of decoding problems because it's got like colour banding everywhere. It's a bit dark as well, which, to be honest, I'd be a little pissed off if they actually released it on Blu-ray here, because this DVD was like nearly £30. I know, right? Don't look at me like that. And No Lives Fritz the Cat is a slightly better transfer, but it's non-anamorphic. But yeah, the first Fritz the Cat film, I've honestly got quite mixed opinions on. It's interesting as a watch. I'd say, especially if you're an animation fan, it's worth at least one viewing. But other than that, it's not great. I prefer Bakshi's later stuff like, Konskin, Heavy Traffic, Wizards, American Pop, etc. And No Lives Fritz the Cat, forget it. It's complete cat shit. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's pretty bad. It basically just kind of doesn't have a reason to exist other than to make money, because Ralph Bakshi had nothing to do with No Lives Fritz the Cat, because he was working on like his other stuff at the time. Interestingly enough, this No Lives Fritz the Cat was the first animated film to get an R rating. First Fritz the Cat film was rated X, which, to be honest, that's probably the only interesting fact about this film. That and the fact that the only people who returned for it were Steve Krantz, who was the producer, and Skip Hinnant, who voiced Fritz. But other than that, it just kind of feels a bit... I mean, the first Fritz the Cat film felt a little bit like a Headless Chicken film. It didn't really go anywhere. This one definitely doesn't go anywhere. And it overall just kind of doesn't really have a plot to it at all, or really anything good about it. It's just a bit boring as well. I was bored during a 70-minute movie. That kind of proof about just how bad it was. And then we have a bonus disc, which is an interview of Ralph Bakshi, which surprisingly doesn't have a BBFC rating despite the films having them. It's an interesting watch, I would say. Ralph Bakshi, he's always great in interviews and stuff. He's a really smart, down-to-earth guy. He knows what he's talking about, and he's actually quite funny as well. So yeah, to be honest, the first Fritz the Cat film was on YouTube, so you can watch it there, and the version on YouTube is much better because it's in HD. There's a HD version on Prime as well, and that's pretty much all Bakshi's films are available on Prime in HD, but a lot of them aren't available on DVD here. In fact, the only one you can get in this country that's still in print is Wizards. Really, all these other ones are quite hard to come across. So now we move on to the Blu-rays. I'll start off with the normal Blu-rays, starting off with another film that deals with racism, and that is Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles. Fucking hilarious. Definitely watch this. It's a classic. It's racist to those who don't get it, or it's racist to those who aren't willing to watch it properly, or just don't like the N-word. Which, fair enough. No one likes the N-word, but this film is actually supposed to be a critique of racism, because quite obviously the white characters, with the exception of Gene Wilder's character, are a bunch of basically bigoted morons. It's quite obvious it's anti-racist, and it's critiquing the Western, because I won't give away the ending, but it is quite obviously a critique of the Western genre and the Western film, which, to be honest, kind of the Western was kind of dying out by the time the 70s came around. So, the Western wasn't really as topical, wasn't really as contemporary back in the 70s as it was in, let's say, the 60s or the 50s. But yeah, definitely worth a watch, this. AFI top 100 comedies of all time, and I couldn't agree more. Here's the disc. Next one is Speed. I've not seen this yet, so I don't know what to make of it at the moment, but this is probably one of the most well-known action films, or it's probably the most famous of the Die Hard clone formula, you know, where it's, you know, one guy has to take down like a bunch of terrorists or whatever in a confined space. In this case, it's a bus. I think everybody knows the concept of Speed, you know, that being the bus, if it goes like under 50 miles an hour, it explodes or something like that. I know there's a sequel out there called Speed 2, which is absolutely abysmal from what I understand. It's this movie but on a fucking cruise ship. To be honest, the best Speed film is the third one, which was set on a milk float. Okay, that wasn't a film, that was an episode of Father Ted, but that episode was fantastic. So yeah, Blu-ray technology for maximum home cinema experience. This one is quite an old Blu-ray. This came out in 2007, I believe, so it was one of the first titles to come out on Blu-ray. But this is a much later repressing because the disc is blind and blue. Now, for some reason, I've got my copy of The French Connection comes like this as well, and I think it's after the Disney Fox acquisition. Disney have started reissuing some of the older Fox titles on Blu-ray with their own disc design. Let me show you an example of a Disney Blu-ray. This one is Tron, and as you can see, there are a lot of similarities, you know, between the design. So yeah, and also I do find it really funny that they've repressed this disc, but they've not like updated the cover at all, because it still says, you know, the maximum home entertainment experience, you know, even though like Blu-ray's been out for like 15 years or something by this point, and obviously 4K's been out for a while. But yeah. Next two are a couple of Arrow ones I got in an Arrow sale. First one is Heathers. A really good film, this. It's sort of a parody, it's sort of like a darker version of movies like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller. Basically a lot of the John Hughes sort of teen movies. It's sort of like a much more twisted version of them. And this is actually a really good film, this. I actually first watched this on Shudder, the horror movie streaming service, when I had a 30-day free trial of it. And it's definitely worth your time. It's definitely a great film. I believe it completely bombed when it came out, but it has kind of picked up a fairly big cult following, and most significantly a couple of years ago when I believe they remade it into a TV series, I think. When will they ever stop remaking pissing films into TV series? But yeah, I'm using the reversible artwork, which is the theatrical artwork. Inside we have, like I do with all my Arrow releases, let me get the disc out. We have the artwork that it came with. There's the disc. Something I noticed about, I don't know why I didn't comment on this earlier, but for some reason it seems to be very rare to get Amaray Blu-ray cases now. I bought a lot of the Blu-rays I bought recently don't have these like weird unbranded cases and stuff. You know, none of them. It seems that Amaray are kind of disappearing for some reason. Don't know why. I believe they said something like they were discontinuing some of their cases. So yeah. I mean, fortunately, these ones, you know, are nice cases. You know, they're not like eco boxes or something. So I don't need to go out and buy new cases. then the next Arrow Blu-ray is Videodrome. This is another fantastic film. Surprisingly, it is still relevant, you know, to this day, you know, because of the internet and stuff. I mean, the technology in it is very dated because it's about like VHS and stuff in the VHS era and pirate TV stations. This surprisingly is the only David Cronenberg film I've seen. I need to watch The Fly and like Scanners and a few others. But yeah, this film is definitely recommended, definitely a great watch. You know, it's like social media and stuff like that, and you know how we're becoming like more and more like disconnected from it, and you know how, you know, it can change you. You know, it, to be honest, that theme is still relevant, you know, still very sadly relevant. That's even more strongly relevant than it was back in the 80s. But anyway, here's the disc. Once again, I'm using the theatrical artwork, and inside we have the artwork that it came with. And here we just have an advert for Arrow stuff, Versus in particular, and Enter the World of 4K with Arrow Video and Arrow Academy. Next Blu-ray is The Wolf of Wall Street. This comes in one of these iconic moments slipcovers, which initially Warner Brothers a couple of years ago started bringing these out, first on DVD and then later on Blu-ray. The Warner Brothers ones, I believe, are released pretty much everywhere. You know, they're not store exclusive, but then eventually Universal started releasing them, and these Universal ones are HMV exclusive, as you can tell by the sticker. But yeah, this is the third Martin Scorsese film I've seen. I've seen Taxi Driver and Goodfellas. And here's the case itself, which is just the normal Hammerade Blu-ray that you can get. This is a really good film. This slightly overrated, I'd say. It's not as like gut punchingly funny and not as like as fast paced as everybody says it is, but it's still a really good film. It's still definitely worth a watch. I probably would say I prefer Taxi Driver over it, but I would say I prefer this over Goodfellas, but Goodfellas is due a rewatch. And of course, obviously I need to watch more like Scorsese films because there's quite a few I want to watch. And then the final two are two Alfred Hitchcock box sets. So we'll start off with this one, and this is the Alfred Hitchcock collection. This contains Dial M for Murder, North by Northwest, and Strangers on a Train. Alfred Hitchcock, he's probably the most well-known director. He's one of the most iconic. He was sort of the first celebrity director, you know, where more people, you know, where people were coming to see it just for the fact that he directed them rather than for the actors who appeared in them. Interestingly, a couple of days ago I bought the other Hitchcock set, which I'll show you in a bit, and Wolf of Wall Street from HMV, because I went in completely unannounced and unprepared, and so I bought that, and I ended up buying North by Northwest because I'd completely forgot this box set existed. It wasn't until I got home I realised, oh shit, there's another Hitchcock set out there. So I was going to get Dial M for Murder and Strangers on a Train on their own, but I think Dial M for Murder's out of print, and I don't think Strangers on a Train was released on Blu-ray on its own. I think it's only available in this set, which is really pissy if you ask me. I've subsequently re-gifted my previous copy of North by Northwest. But yeah. Anyway, inside we have Dial M for Murder. Prior to me getting these sets, the only Hitchcock film I'd seen was Psycho, and now I've seen Saboteur, which is in the other set. I think you could probably figure out which of that other set it is. But anyway, here's Dial for Murder, which is a 3D Blu-ray, because this film was actually made in 3D, sort of during the first 3D boom of the 50s. There is a 2D copy on the discs, so you can watch. So if you don't have a 3D player, you can still watch it. Here's the disc. North by Northwest, which is the one I most want to watch. I've heard this film is fantastic. One of Hitchcock's most iconic. Here's the disc. This is the 50th anniversary edition, which is the same as the other edition I've got, so I'm not losing anything. And then finally, Strangers on a Train, which is another one of Hitchcock's most iconic films. The reason why I don't think this Blu-ray was released on its own was because it doesn't have a UPC code. The other ones in the set do have UPC codes, this one doesn't. But yeah, Strangers on a Train. And then the next one is, you could probably figure out what the other set is, and it is the Alfred Hitchcock Masterpiece Collection. The previous Hitchcock set I've got right there was released by Warner Brothers. This one is by Universal. Probably the most comprehensive Hitchcock set you can get. I got this for about £35. You know, because normally it goes for like 45, 50, whatever. So I mean, I managed to get it for a decent price. Yeah, this includes 14 of his films. I sort of love and hate this set, because I mean, I love it because it's really nice, compact, and it's got all pretty much a lot of his classic films in here. But what I don't like is the packaging, and I'll show you why. I mean, it's quite heavy, quite sturdy, and stuff like that. I mean, it's nice sturdy cardboard. You know, it's not like thin papery crap or whatever. But unfortunately, the discs are housed in these sort of weird sort of book style packaging, and unfortunately some of the discs are slightly scratched because, you know, these Blu-rays aren't supposed to be slid out of cardboard. They're supposed to be like held on plastic spindles. Stupid. I've checked them all and they all work, so you know, that's a plus, but still, unfortunately with the set you have to be dead careful. But yeah, here are the films. So we have Saboteur, which I watched last night, which was, I really like the first part. I really like the opening and the closing, but I wasn't really a fan of the rest. And it is quite obviously propaganda. It was sort of Second World War propaganda piece, you know, designed to boost the morale in America during World War II. But I mean, it's interesting. It's worth a watch. You know, it really is a curio. Shadow of a Doubt, which I'm probably going to watch tonight. One of his most, sort of his first sort of proper big films, sort of one of his first sort of masterpieces. This doesn't have all Hitchcock's movies in it, by the way. He did like over 50, but I've got like 17 of his films now, so that's quite good going, you know, from having 0 in the collection to having 17. Rope, which is another one of his most well-known films. Surprisingly, I didn't know this until I got this. This is actually a Warner Brothers film, and yet for some reason Universal got the rights, you know, to release it on Blu-ray. There's sort of, I know the movie was meant to look like it was done in one take, and I know it cuts like every 10 minutes or so, you know, because the cameras could only hold about 10 minutes at a time. But I still heard this is a good film. Rear Window, which is of course one of Hitchcock's most iconic, regarded as one of his best films. Yeah, definitely one that I'll be looking forward to. The Trouble with Harry, which is one I don't think I've ever heard of. Quite interesting. The Man Who Knew Too Much. This was a remake of a 1930s film, which was also directed by Hitchcock. I've not seen the 1930s version of it, so I'm excited to watch this. I might get the 1930s version at some point. Vertigo, which I believe it was knocked off. I believe on an AFI poll it knocked Citizen Kane off as the best film ever made. So yeah, that should be interesting. Psycho, which is the only film of his I have seen. To be honest, it doesn't really work, you know, as well today, because pretty much everybody knows the twists in it. Everybody knows what's happening, so it doesn't quite work. But it's still a great film. Still definitely an interesting film. And what's his face? Anthony Perkins gives such a fantastic performance as Norman Bates. One of the best performances I've ever seen. The Birds, which I think is the one that most people have seen. Yeah, The Birds. Marnie, which is a film I'd never heard of. Interestingly enough, you've got the late great Sean Connery in this. I believe this came out 1964, so I think he'd been James Bond for about 2 years by this point. Yeah, because I think Goldfinger came out the same year. And of course before that he had Dr. No and From Russia With Love. Torn Curtain, which I think these are sort of getting to like sort of his later sort of take it or leave it type films, you know, where kind of like during the 50s and the 60s he got a lot of his iconic stuff, and then kind of one more to point like early 50s and early 60s he got a lot of his more iconic stuff. Topaz, which is the longest film in this set, it's like 2.5 hours. Frenzy, which surprisingly is the only, I'll get the discount, it's the only 18 rated film in this set. And then finally Family Plot, which was his last film. So yeah, that was it. That was everything. Till next time. Goodbye.